Hey, what's going on? It's Caleb from the Plastic Underground, and so today's video is just a continuation of the last video. We're going to be painting and finishing up the Bounty Hunter tracking fob. So to make the wire part of the tracking fob on the front, I'm using some 20 gauge wire, and I'm just taking my wire cutters, and so kind of a long process, but I'm stripping off all of the coating for all of the wire. Then I take those two wires and I put them in my drill, and I very slowly wind them together by hand. And then towards the end here, I use my wire cutters as the top of the grip, and I hold the wire in place so that when I turn the drill very slowly, I can get the braids to be even tighter. Now I'm taking that wire and I'm bending it in a curve to try to see exactly how long I want it to be. It's kind of up to you how long you want it to be, whatever you think looks best. I don't have an exact measurement for that. And just kind of pinch the top of the wire together. That's where the metal tracking fob thing goes at the top. I don't know what it's called. So here I am cutting off that square piece that goes at the top of the wire, just out of 2mm craft foam. And then it will be glued from the back and wrap around to the front, and it meets up in the front, and then I kind of crimp it in on itself to give it that look. And then you kind of glue it, and you can use a tool to kind of push it in place to hold it. So now I have marked a spot on the back of the tracking fob where I want all of the electronics to go, and I'm just taking an X-Acto knife and just cutting that square out as best as I can. Now with the squares cut out, I mark a circle that I will cut at an angle, and that way you can get your finger to slide down to get the square piece off a lot easier. And then I just take the Dremel and just sand it real quick just to make it smooth. So now what I did, and it worked okay, but if I was to do it again, I would probably try to use some magnets. I just took some Velcro and I put it on the outside parts of that backing square. I cut them narrow so that they fit on the 5mm thick foam. and so then I just glue the Velcro to the outside of that piece, and then to the same spots on the inside of the tracking device. So now I'm starting to solder the LEDs. This wire I'm using is, I believe it's a 10 gauge, really thin electrical wire, and I'm just wiring two pieces to the LED red bulb. So now I've put the LED and the wires that I soldered together, I put them inside the tracking fob through the back. I pull the wires through the hole that I cut out for the switch, and I solder the wire to the switch and then glue the switch in. And now I tested all the connections before I soldered the battery pack, but then just put the battery pack on and test your switch, and it should work. So now I'm putting the back on, making sure that the back fits with the battery pack and everything inside. And like I said, the Velcro works, but it's not super great, but it does the job, and you don't really ever see the back anyway. If you're holding it, no one's ever going to see the back of it. So this is just some Mod Podge. It's satin. It's watered down slightly. What I do is I just add a little bit of water to the bottle. then I will add a little bit more Mod Podge to it if I need it to be a little thicker. I like it a little thick. I don't like it super runny when I do it. The thicker it is, the harder it spreads, but also you don't get as many drips and it doesn't glob up as much and leave brush marks. But I try to just cover the entire piece and then go back through as it's drying and brush it out of the corners to get it so it doesn't build up in the corners. And I put about, I think I did 4 layers of this. So here I am taking the battery cover off to do that separately just so it doesn't glue together when I'm putting the Mod Podge on. And then I paint the Mod Podge around the switch too, as best I can, just to be careful that the switch doesn't get glued shut by the Mod Podge too. Alright, so now I'm just using some just basic black acrylic paint. It's the Apple Barrel from Plaid. It's just the big cheap bottle that you can get at Walmart or any craft store. And as you can see, like when I'm doing one single color, I will literally just paint right out from the cap. Just, I don't know, I hate putting paint on a surface or a painting tablet and wasting it, so I will just paint right out of the cap and pour more into the cap as I need it. So I just paint the entire surface, even the spots that I know are going to be silver. I paint them all black to give the silver aluminum paint a black background to go onto it. It helps it look a little bit better. And then I remove the battery pack and paint the insides of both black, just so you can't see it through the cracks or when you take it off. I think I only put 1 coat of black paint on too. I think it covers pretty well. That's kind of what the Mod Podge is for. It not only gives you a smooth surface to paint on, but the foam soaks it in, and so the black paint layer just goes right on top of that, and it doesn't soak in as much, so you can get away with 1 or 2 coats. Now this is just some testers, enamel. I'm using aluminum, and I'm just painting that on the aluminum parts. Just being careful not to undo all the paint, the black underneath, by over brushing and making a mess. It gets a little tricky when you're trying to paint the sides. You can painter's tape it if you want. I just find it easier to just use a small brush and just slowly paint the sides. And then you can touch up spots with black after if you have to. It's really not a big deal. believe I only put one coat of aluminum paint on here. I think I went through, after it dried, I went through and just looked at it, and if there was any brush marks, I just quickly rebrushed over that. A little bit of brush marks isn't a big deal, especially if you're doing like aluminum. It actually will kind of help it make it look like it's brushed aluminum. And this is a, you know, it's a Star Wars prop, so it's going to be dirty, it's going to be scratched up, it's going to be handled a lot, so it's not super important for it to be smooth and perfectly painted. We're going to be putting a dirt wash on top of it anyway, so it's not as super important. So here I'm just using more of that aluminum paint on the metal piece on top of the wire. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's called. I think that's literally the mechanism that picks up the tracking. It sends the signal to the fob itself, but I'm not 100% sure what that's called. But so just painting that silver. Now I'm using some of this just brown. It's just, the name of it is Real Brown. It says it's a gloss. It's a gloss paint, but I don't know if I've ever noticed it being glossy. Again, it's just Apple Barrel by Plaid. So this I'm painting out of the cap, but I'm also dipping my brush in the water just to try to water it down a little bit. And I just paint it over the entire surface. And just like in my Boba Fett Gauntlet video, you go through and you just dab it away with a paper towel and streak it. I streak it more on this than on the Boba Fett Gauntlet, just to make it look a little dirtier. You can put a little bit of water on your paper towel and go over certain spots. And that's it for the painting. So now here I'm just test fitting the wires in. I poked holes through the foam with just a sculpting tool, and then you just test it in, figure out where you want it, and then what I'll do is I'll just pull the wire back out a little bit, put a little dab of glue, stick it in, and do the same for the other side. And that's it. Putting the battery pack on. I thought I had it in the wrong way. Yeah, I did. Okay. So now that's all together. Give it a quick test, make sure everything's still working. I think I had a problem with my switch being glued shut a little bit, but I fixed it just by switching it around. And that's it. That's the finished tracking fob, and I'll put a couple pictures in at the end just to show you a little bit better.